Do you recall when action movies got your heart racing and hands sweating without any computer-generated imagery? Hidden beneath today's blockbuster noise are gems from the 1980s that continue delivering knockout entertainment. These were films where authentic car stunts and real fight choreography carried the narrative. Tonight we're uncovering these treasures, dusting them off, and experiencing every impact once more. Hit that subscribe button, turn up your sound, and join us on this journey. Number 1. To Live and Die in L.A., 1985. Secret Service operative Richard Chance plummets through Los Angeles like an unguided projectile following his partner's murder by master counterfeiter Rick Masters. Sun-drenched expressways and pastel-colored hotels shimmer with dangerous allure. Chance responds with death-defying maneuvers that disregard both his badge and personal safety. Director William Friedkin transforms the police thriller into rebellious cinema. Vehicle pursuits race against traffic on the 110 freeway. Shotgun-wielding robberies masquerade as federal operations. Foot chases traverse aqueducts that sparkle like metallic wastelands. Wang Chung's synthesizer-driven soundtrack throbs in rhythmic surges, synchronizing with heartbeats you can practically feel through the screen. William Dafoe depicts Masters as a criminal artist, blending counterfeit pigments by flickering candlelight, producing fake currency so exquisite it destroys genuine existences. This film maintains its power because it reflects the nature of ambition, how hunting one evil can transform you into something you wouldn't recognize in the mirror at sunrise. The concluding revelation strikes like a misprinted bill, asymmetrical, startling, impossible to forget. 4 decades afterward, every burnt orange skyline photograph reminds audiences that sometimes genuine danger conceals itself behind a grin and a crisp $100 bill that reeks of fuel. Number 2. The Last Dragon, 1985. Leroy Green wanders through 1980s Harlem, pursuing the glow, a supernatural force that converts martial artists into human meteors. He practices with eating utensils and contemplates philosophical riddles until destiny positions him between 2 tempests: glamorous funk music video celebrity Laura Charles and swaggering criminal overlord Eddie Arcadian. However, the most intense confrontation awaits with Sho'nuff, the Shogun of Harlem, who parades beneath flashing neon, wearing crimson football padding, proclaiming the streets his personal training ground. Director Michael Schultz merges kung fu, Motown sound, and vibrant comic book aesthetics until punches transform into percussion and kicks ignite like electric signs. Vanity's silk-draped music video segments blend effortlessly into aerial fighting techniques, demonstrating that romance and martial arts can occupy the same platform. This movie maintains relevance because it represents pure transformation. An underdog champion who battles ignorance with forbearance, then releases every contained lightning strike when affection faces danger. Authentic wire-assisted stunts allow performers to soar over rooftops without digital assistance. The finale's golden radiance explodes directly from Leroy's belief that gentleness surpasses boastfulness. Every repeated viewing resembles a neighborhood celebration where understanding finally seizes the microphone and delivers the most powerful rhythm. 3. Best of the Best, 1989. 5 American Taekwondo practitioners, a wounded single father, a mourning hothead, a Buddhist agricultural worker, a cynical motorcyclist, and a straightforward Texan, gather to confront South Korea's undefeated national squad. Preparation commences with fractured ribs and shattered pride under Coach Kuzo's barking instruction. Pop the shoulder. Rotate the hips. Complete the motion. Director Robert Radler photographs every exercise like a private revelation chamber. Perspiration combines with emotional release as concealed wounds emerge between spinning kicks. Philip Ree's peace-oriented Tommy Lee continuously envisions the adversary who killed his sibling in competition. Eric Roberts's Alex Grady battles with a reconstructed limb and the terror of abandoning his young son without a father. The Seoul Stadium transforms into a temple of justified combat, each point registered against booming percussion and audience roars that seem cosmic. This film endures because it contends genuine triumph is ethical, not statistical, an act of compassion that quiets arenas more powerfully than gold decorations. When competitors bow, what would you surrender for dignity exceeding fame? 4. Miracle Mile, 1988. Harry Washello responds to a ringing payphone on Wilshire Boulevard at 3 o'clock in the morning and receives a terrified voice whispering that the world concludes in 60 minutes. Emergency signals remain silent. Neon continues humming. Somewhere overhead, the horizon, nuclear vapor trails might already be scratching toward downtown Los Angeles. Harry must locate Julie, the woman he recently encountered and possibly loves, before the metropolis converts to glass. Every second director Steve DeYarnat steals from the timepiece intensifies the tension. A jazz establishment becomes a hysteria shelter. A hijacked fuel truck barrels through abandoned crossroads, and the atmosphere changes hue as though sampling cinders. Gunfire reverberates in parking structures where strangers separate into saviors and predators. The action appears frantic rather than spectacular, sprinting through collapsed signal lights, suspended from helicopter landing gear, wrestling destiny itself. This film maintains impact because the authentic detonation is terror, an invisible timer that compels ordinary individuals to select who they become when no future remains. Even presently, when missile warnings fit inside telephones, the film's closing embrace amid descending embers seems like a challenge to contact someone you cherish before sirens overwhelm the connection. Number 5. Red Scorpion, 1988. A Soviet special operations giant named Nikolai parachutes into an African wilderness with instructions to eliminate a rebel commander. Sun-scorched settlements and rattling automatic weapons obscure the ideological boundaries faster than heat distortion on armored vehicle plating, and Nikolai starts questioning who the genuine invader represents. When his Spetsnaz supervisors massacre civilians for entertainment, remorse detonates like a concealed explosive device and propels him racing toward insurrection. Director Joseph Zito photographs firefights beneath molten sundowns, every weapon flash of frantic supplication. Dolph Lundgren's stone-like countenance fractures sufficiently to reveal the youth imprisoned inside the combat apparatus. A solitary stand against Soviet attack helicopters evolves into a legendary ritual of cleansing. Branding implements, tribal cosmetics, and improvised rockets constructed from farming equipment. This film maintains force because it questions what transpires when allegiance crashes into moral judgment, then responds with a rocket-propelled grenade roar that topples propaganda like fragile sculptures. In an era of unmanned aerial combat, the movie's unprocessed explosions feel almost personal. Blisters, shattered teeth, and one soldier-for-hire's spirit igniting in actual time. Number 6. Nighthawks, 1981. New York thoroughfares hiss with fluorescent illumination and anxiety as Detective Deke Da Silva and terrorist Wolfgar orbit each other like injured predators. Stallone abandons the confidence for exposed anxiety, portraying a police officer so depleted that every underground railway shriek seems individual. Facing him, Rutger Hauer glides through masses with icy azure indifference, a hunter who relishes the pursuit beyond the termination. Director Bruce Malmuth drags the lens through garbage-scattered passageways and discotheque brightness, constructing apprehension from routine sounds, train brakes, interference, an infant's wail. The conclusion on Roosevelt Island, with illumination wavering, seems almost journalistic in its disorder. Why does it continue hitting forcefully? Because it addresses metropolitan terror as spiritual deterioration, questioning whether rescuing a metropolis requires surrendering your personal humanity. 40-plus years subsequently, the current events haven't transformed, and that closing shotgun discharge continues reverberating like an underground railway entrance slamming closed. Number 7. Shoot to Kill, 1988. A Seattle jewelry thief murders without hesitation, then disappears into fog-drenched mountains with a captive. Hard-edged FBI operative Warren Stanton, refined footwear sliding in sludge, collaborates with rough tracker Jonathan Knox, who communicates with forests the method others examine charts. Their reluctant mutual regard crackles more intensely than the campfires they distribute, while somewhere forward, a murderer conceals himself among frightened hikers. The screenplay tempts you with traditional partner-police officer dialogue, then drags you over precipice boundaries into fundamental survival dread. Director Roger Spottiswoode makes every rain-slippery boulder a potential burial container, and the gunfire reverberates like thunder cascading off frozen mass walls. It continues hitting because it fuses metropolitan procedural exactness to wilderness savagery, demonstrating that the most refined hunter becomes powerless when the natural world bellows and when malevolence assumes a cordial expression. Number 8. Runaway Train, 1985. Two hardened prisoners punch through Alaskan precipitation into brightness, only to climb aboard a cargo locomotive whose acceleration mechanism jams completely open. Wind screams through ripped metal. Railroad tracks shriek across elevated structures, and the engine transforms into a steel creature, pursuing obliteration. John Voight's Manny protests against invisible jailers, while Eric Roberts' Buck converts from enthusiastic puppy to frantic survivor. Their solitary confederate is a lone switch controller murmuring through radio interference as temperature gauges descend. Director Andrei Konchalovsky converts velocity into philosophical inquiry. When a man is already sentenced, what remains to frighten? The authentic stunt execution, genuine locomotives crushing genuine snowbanks, continues detonating vision dulled by computer imagery. Its strength persists because the uncontrolled engine represents every compulsion we cannot regulate, bellowing toward a precipice we maintain pretending doesn't exist. Number 9. Blind Fury, 1989. Vietnam blinded Nick Parker, but warfare also refined his remaining senses into a fatal harmony. Presently, he drifts America's expressways with a farmer's grin, a damaged walking stick concealing a sword that resonates when injustice appears. Assigned with safeguarding a youth from drug-trafficking militia, Nick demonstrates greater lethality than any seeing gunfighter, severing projectiles from thin atmosphere and adversaries from their personal arrogance. Director Philip Noyce equilibrates Zen tranquility with slapstick disorder, permitting Rutger Hauer to wink through the crimson spray like a wandering samurai entertainer. It continues hitting forcefully because its core throbs beneath the confidence, a veteran shattered by conflict who reconstructs himself as protective celestial being, converting disability into extraordinary ability years preceding superheroes attempted the identical transformation. Every whistle of that blade reminds observers vision represents merely one method to perceive. Number 10. Extreme Prejudice, 1987. Jack Bentine, a Texas Ranger manufactured from sun-blasted granite, discovers his childhood companion Cash Bailey commanding Mexican narcotics militaries across the Rio Grande. Their confrontation would be scorched territory sufficient, but a Black Operations Execution Squadron, officially deceased soldiers, charges into town with schemes that redefine betrayal. Director Walter Hill photographs the wasteland like an exposed tomb, dust tornadoes rotating around men who exchanged principles for decorations. Projectiles pulverize bone with Hill's trademark shotgun editing, and Jerry Goldsmith's musical composition beats like boots on parched soil. This one continues striking because it reveals patriotism's shadow. Warriors abandoned by the nation they hemorrhaged for, returning home to profit. When Benteen and Cash confront each other beneath a powder azure atmosphere, the gunfire seems like thunderclaps over a burial ceremony that's been anticipating since youth. Number 11. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, 1985. Harold Smith was an anonymous police officer until an unfortunate mugging yanked him off Manhattan's dock and into a highly classified resurrection. Reborn as Remo Williams, he's informed his mortality certificate is registered, his fingerprints eliminated, and America presently possesses every muscle in his physique. Korean Master Chiun greets him with puzzles, mockery, and impossible instruction. Outpace bullets on damp sand, evade needles projected from a thumb, traverse across fresh cement without descending. Director Guy Hamilton converts Central Park and the Statue of Liberty into living challenge courses, camera rotating as Remo masters the ghost step discipline called Sinanju. Fred Ward portrays him like a working-class escape artist. Equal portions bruised knuckles and crooked grin, making every narrow escape seem accidentally heroic. The comedy never diminishes the impacts, it sneaks past them constantly. However, beneath the comic book, choreography beats fury at double-speaking power manipulators. The genuine antagonist is a defense contractor marketing defective superweapons to soldiers who will never return. Remo's closing leap across a collapsing suspension bridge, accomplished with wire stunts preceding computer imagery, pounds because it's one man retrieving his identity before bureaucracy files it permanently. Even currently, whenever the skyline darkens, the concept of being erased but fighting back ignites every pulse. Number 12. Streets of Fire, 1984. In the neon-saturated slums of a metropolis that seems half future, half scrapyard fantasy, rock goddess Ellen Aim is kidnapped mid-concert by the Bombers, a motorcycle gang accelerating to the thunder of synthesizers. Enter Tom Cody, trench coat wanderer and former lover hired for currency, but drawn by incomplete heartbeats. Streets are drenched with permanent midnight precipitation. Jukeboxes flicker against demolished windows. Every alleyway illuminates like a music video, teetering on apocalypse. Director Walter Hill cuts action to Jim Steinman's Thunder Ballads, converting gunfights into percussion solos, fistfights into guitar feedback. The finale inside a deserted rail yard exchanges bullets for sledgehammers, sparks flying as love songs drown out screams. It continues hitting forcefully because it imagines romance and violence breathing the identical gasoline atmosphere, a world where rescuing a voice can preserve a city's spirit. Michael Paray's brooding silence and Diane Lane's defiant vocals fuse mythology with MTV, reminding you heroes sometimes swagger out of jukeboxes. Each shotgun blast is timed like a snare strike, each burning fuse an electric riff that coils under your skin until you smell ozone and danger. You've just sprinted through back-alley shootouts, neon showdowns, and train track hell rides that time tried to forget. These movies continue stinging because truth echoes more powerfully in practical sparks and sweat-soaked courage. Which classic blindsided you most? Drop it in the comments, share the adrenaline, and keep our forgotten action heroes roaring back to life.